بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. Students, welcome to Criticism, and we will start with the introductions of literary criticism. My name is Ahmad Faris, and I'm going to teach you literary criticism. So, before we talk about history of literary criticism and the new criticism, let us talk about the introductions to this material. Now, this course exactly is mainly designed for the fourth level students like you. So the main focus here is on practicing theory and reading literature. So let us go to the syllabus plan. Literary criticism, as you see here. The first chapter will be about defining criticism, theory, and literatures. We mean here we will study together the definition of a criticism, what is literary criticism, how to become a literary critic, what is literary theory and what is literature. So all these things we will cover in chapter number 1. Chapter number 2, as you see, a historical theory of literary criticism. And in this chapter, we will cover the introductions of Plato and Aristotle as a group of pioneers in this age. So we will study also Sir Philip Sidney and P.B. Shelley and other critics. Chapter number 3, as you see, Russian formalism and the new criticism. In this chapter, we will cover also the introductions, first of all, Russian formalism and the new criticism, historical development, and other subjects. So in chapter number 4, read-oriented criticism here, and we mean here that the reader oriented criticism, we mean assumptions here we will cover, and the methodology, structuralism, also structuralism will be. So in also chapter number 5, you see here modernity, postmodernism, structuralism, post-structuralism. So we will cover the structuralism and its historical, historical developments of the modernism and the structuralism. Then we will also look at number 6 here, chapter number 6. As you see, you will find that psychoanalytic criticism, and this we will study models of the human psyche, and Oedipus, like Oedipus also we will study, and the castration, and the Electra complex of significance of dream also will be covered. Chapter number 7 here, feminism. In feminism we will study about Virginia Woolf and geographical strains of feminism like American, British, French here we will study. Then chapter number 8, Marxism. In Marxism here, the historical development of Marxism in Russia, and Russia and Marxism, Marxism theory today we will study also. Then chapter number 9 here, cultural poetics of a new historism. In this also chapter we will cover also the new critical lecture. The new critical lecture, like old historism and the new historism, will be covered here. All the historism and the new historism. Then in chapter number 10, post-colonialism. In post-colonialism, we will study the empire writers back and historical developments also of it. So this is in chapter number 10. In chapter number 11, as you see here, the structuralism. In structuralism, we will study main concept and the theory of structuralism, and also we should cover also the main features of structuralism. Okay, then we will move to development of the American short story. In development of American short story, we will study the development of the American short story, like critical discussions of the selections. We will choose, for example, we will study like Sherwood Anderson, Sophistications story, and Ernest Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea, and other short story will be covered. Then 12, as you see, developments of the American short story. Yes, we covered the first half of the 20th century in chapter number 13. In this chapter, we mean here what is the first half of the 20th century will be answered here by study. Then why is 19th century called the 20th century? Then the glossary. This is exactly what we will cover inshallah in this semester. Let us go here to the contents and defining criticism, theory, and literature. Now, as you see here, we also will study in this lecture, we should cover in this lecture defining criticism, theory, and literatures. And today we will also cover the purpose of literary criticism, then what is literary theory, and what is literature, finally, how to become a literary critics. These subjects today we will cover and discuss one by one. Let us move to another slide here and see the introduction to literary criticism. First of all, as you see, literary criticism is the art of judging and commenting on the qualities and character. The first thing you have to know about literary criticism is that, of course, it's going to be all about life. So, literary criticism is going to tell you how to appreciate it. Let me see how to defines, or we can define it like it tells you uh, art of judging. Let me see, art of judging and commenting on the qualities, as you see, and characters of literary work. So, what is a piece of literature telling you? Let me see, what kind of piece of work literary criticism telling you? Is it poetry? Is it bad poetry? Everything about piece of literature is going to be evaluated because of the criticism. So here we have to know what we mean by criticism. When we say that criticism derived from the Greek from a Greek word means judgment. Here, judgment means to put things in its suitable and the proper place, to give its a value. Everyone can make a criticism. How to keep his personality and to share his judgments. So, to judge work of art, how does it imitate the nature, and how does it relate with the nature? So, imitation here, imitation is one criteria of a criticism, and it's follow steps and let me say rules which make you to know if your work is true or false. So it's derived and rules or existence from literature. So if there is no literature, there is no criticism. This is one. Two, you have to know, according to this introduction, that a criticism or literary criticism, literary theory, we don't talk about beauty or art, but we talk here about literature in general use. How does it affect that, and how does our emotion and feeling affect that as a human being? So we can summarize all of that. Literary criticism is an attempt to evaluate and understand the creative writing, the literature of an author. So literature includes, when we say literature, it includes plays, essays, novels, poetry, short story. So literary criticism is a description, analysis, evaluations, let me say interpretation of a particular literary work or an author's writings as whole. So this is what we can say, or what we mean by criticism and literary criticism. This is number one. Let us go to number two. Here, purpose of literary criticism. As you see here, we have number one. The first purpose is that to help us solve a problem in reading. Now, what does it mean to help us solve a problem in reading? It means, first question, let me ask, why would you criticize a piece of literature, or what purpose does it serve you? Number one, you have to know that it helps us solve a problem in reading. For example, you read a piece of literature and there comes a problem. There is a problem in reading here. The people or characters on the novel which you are reading now, or in the drama, novel or drama, you see them willing, but somehow the writer of poetry is then in the light that he is trying to make you see the different light, trying to make you see them a good people, but they good people or bad people. Criticism here is going to help you there. Criticism here is going to tell you that these people are good people or bad people. How? For example, again, you have to know the history of piece of war. So why or when this literature written? What was happening in the society at that time? Because of that things happening, because that political movement, social movement, people who were writing this had a sympathetic feeling towards you, so they felt that these people were in the right. So they want to evoke your sympathy to these people. So the first purpose of literary criticism here is to help you solve these problems. You find yourself when you're trying to read a piece of literature, you can't decide whether this person is good or bad. Why do we feel sympathy for him even if he is bad? Because the writer really is very tricky. He's trying to make you feel good for a person who apparently is not very good. So therefore, we can understand here how literary criticism can help us to solve all these problems. This is one. Two, here, why, as this is questions, why would you criticize a piece of literature? We answers during our discussion. What purpose does it serve? Let us go or move to another slides here to see. Number two, to help us literary criticism solve now, and to help us choose the better of two conflicting readers. Number one here, what does it mean? It means that, for example, you read a book and there is a problem here again, that is the society is completely destructions. Why it is completely destruction? Is the people too much depressed or too little depressions? Should we have told them a lot about what to do, or should it be little less? So here is the conflict between readers. Now, I mean here points of view. So here is the conflict between readers, and here is the criticism will tell you how to decide, because this is the criticism. It is going to tell you what the writer was intended exactly to write at that time. This is number two, as you see here. Number three, to enable us to form judgment about literature. What is good and what is bad? Here I mean, what is good, what is bad? They have to be certain rule when you want to know or to use literature. Now, how is it? this is a good piece of literature. What is the good piece of literature? Now, they have to be certain regulation. They have to be certain forms. They have to be certain rules, as I told you before. It should have this kind of language. It should have this kind of diction. It should have, let me say, this kind of rhyme. It should have to follow a particular school of thought. So then you can say that the piece of literature is good. So literary criticism is going to solve all these purposes as well. This is what we mean by literary criticism, and how it can help you to solve all these problems. Now, let us go to the what is the literary theory, or what we mean by literary theory. Literary theory, as you see here, a better understanding of literary theory can be gained by investigating the etymology of the word theory itself. So, a theory here derived from a Greek word theoria. The word theory means a view, perspective of the Greek stage. Let us move to this slide and see exactly what is literary theory. Number one, the body of ideas and method used in the reading and the studying of literatures. Two, various theories, focal points, lenses, and approaches to explain and interpret text. Then, applications of diverse knowledge and perspectives to yield multiple interpretations of literatures. How we can understand or discuss these points? First of all, when we say literary theory, let me say that many destinations have been written about what exactly literary theory is. But to put it briefly here, uh, let me say that literary theory describes different approaches to studying literature. Essentially, literary theory, as you see here, are lenses. Let me see. Lenses that a reader can apply in order to view a text in a new light. So imagine that you have a collection of glasses made up of different colors. One pair lets you see everything in blue, another in red, etc. So literary theory here is like that. You can read a story with different lenses and see it as let me say moral tale, as a comment on the role of woman, feminist, as the struggle between classes like Marxist, etc. So this is here what we mean by literary theory. So literary theory, we can summarize that is the body of ideas and methods we use in particular reading of literatures. By literary theory here, we refers not to the meaning of a work of literature, but also to the theories that reveal what literature can mean. Literary theory is a description of the underlying principles. One might say that tools by which we attempt to understand literature. So all literary interpretations draw on a basis in a theory, but can serve as a justification for very different kinds of critically activity. Here we can summarize and understand what we mean by literary theory. Let us move to another part or slice here to see literature. What is literature, or what we mean by literature? Now, literature, as you see, what is literature and why do we study it? Number one, literature is a composition that tells a story, dramatizes the situations, expresses emotions, analysis and advocates idea to help us grow personally and intellectually. It provides an objective base for knowledge and understanding. Fourth, here shapes our goal and values by clarifying our own identities both positively and negatively. Finally, literature makes us a human. So we can here conclude that literature proudly is any collection of written word, but it is also used more narrowly for writings especially considered to be an art form, especially prose, fiction, drama, and poetry. For centuries, as you see here, writers, literary historians, and others have debated about, but have failed to agree on definitions for this term. They say, number one, literature we can say, derived the Latin litera, meaning letter, the root meaning of the word literature refers primarily to the written word and seems to support these definitions. Some think that literature is simply a thing that is written. Others choose to define literature as an art. So we can conclude here that finally literature as an art form can also conclude, if we want to say art, we can also include here works in various non-fiction genres such as autobiography, memoir, letter, and the essay. So within it is a broad definitions. Literature include non-fictional books, articles, or other printed informations on a particular subject. The final slides here, how to become a literary critic. How to become a literary critic? You see here the reading process itself produce array of responses taking from of questions, statements, opinions, and feelings evoked by the text. Critic must have the philosophical mind. He must be able to distinguish between reality and appearance. What does it mean? It means that when you read a story, for example, and state what I can say, state here your personal interpretations of the text, you become practicing literary criticism. You should interact with the story, thinking about their like and dislike of the various characters, their impressions of the setting, plot, and structures, and their overall assessment of the story itself. So, how to become a literary critic? By reading, or the reading process itself produced array of responses taking the form of questions, statements, opinions, and feelings evoked by the text. So now we come to the end of this lecture. Next lecture will be about a historical survey of literary criticism. We will discuss after the introductions, we will discuss Plato and Aristotle, some as a pioneers in English criticism. We will also read about Sir Philip Sidney and John Dryden, Alexander Poe, P.B. Shelley. These writers or these critics, we will study their masterpieces and their work life. Inshallah, next lecture I'll meet you, and until I'll meet you, let me say now